January 17, 2017. Trump sends emergency message to Putin. I may not live through the week. This is by Search of Fall. An apocalyptic sounding Security Council reported circulating in the Kremlin today states that President Putin has just received an emergency personal message from President-elect Donald Trump that, in part, says, I may not live through the week, but adds, if I do, I'll get even with those bastards, and everyone will win. According to this report, President Putin was hand-delivered this emergency message written by President-elect Trump by a top Federal Security Service FSB aide to Kirill Dmitriev, who is the CEO of the Russian Direct Investment Fund, who in turn had received it from Anthony Scaramucci, who is Trump's director of the Office of Public Liaison and Intergovernmental Affairs, during a hastily arranged private meeting at the World Economic Forum in Davos, Switzerland. At the very beginning of the President-elect Trump's emergency warning message to President Putin, this report continues, America's new leader hand-wrote the two cryptic quotes. Number one, we will have world government whether or not we like it. The question is only whether world government will be archived by consent or by conquest. That was stated by the German-born American banker James Warburg, son of Council on Foreign Relations founder Paul Warburg, who said these shocking words when he gave testimony before the U.S. Senate Foreign Relations Committee on the 17th of February 1950. Number two, today the path to total dictatorship in the United States can be laid by strictly legal means. We have a well-organized political action group in the country determined to destroy our Constitution and establish a one-party state. It operates secretly, silently, continuously to transform our government. This ruthless, power-seeking elite is a disease of our century. This group is answerable neither to the President, the Congress, nor the courts. It is practically irremovable. That was stated by U.S. Senator William Jenner 4 years later in 1954. Barely a decade after these ominous warnings were given to the American people, this report explains President Dwight Eisenhower, upon his leaving office in 1961, further warned, in the councils of government, we must guard against the acquisition of unwarranted influence, whether sought or unsought, by the military-industrial complex. The potential for the disastrous rise of misplaced power exists and will persist. We must never let the weight of this combination endanger our liberties or democratic processes. We should take nothing for granted. Only an alert and knowledgeable citizenry can compel the proper meshing of the huge industrial and military machinery of defense with our peaceful methods and goals, so that security and liberty may prosper together. This report further explains that by President-elect Trump's including these two quotes in his emergency message to President Putin, he was likewise giving notice to the Federation of whom he was battling against and whose currently accepted nomenclature is the CIA-led deep state, which President Obama just days ago having shockingly signed an order allowing the CIA to obtain and secretly released to the U.S. propaganda, fake news, mainstream media, all of President-elect Trump's private phone calls. This report continues. His only secure source of to communicate with President Putin was by this hand-delivered emergency message, and as Trump, stated in this letter, my enemies are all around me. I wish the American people knew the truth and how much I'm depending on them. To the many and grave details outlined by President-elect Trump in this emergency message to President Putin, this report states was his failing to stop President Obama's sending to Norway today of hundreds of U.S. Marines who are now preparing to release from their massive military bunkers thousands of tanks and armored vehicles against Russia's northern border. Equally alarming, this report says, is that President Trump also said he failed to get President Obama to save ex-CIA operatives Sabrina de Sousa from being extradited to Italy because she simply followed the orders her superiors had given to her, and even more gravely is warning that the decorated former CIA officer Kevin Shipp, who exposed the proof that the U.S. was vaccinating children to deliberately cause autism and revealed the climate change hoax, has now been targeted for immediate assassination too. With both CIA officers, De Sousa and Shipp, having now been eliminated by President Obama so that President-elect Trump's new intelligence operatives will be unable to interview them about the many Obama, Clinton, Bush crimes they've been witness to. This report warns this CIA-led deep state war against America's new leader has now apparently entered into its final and most dangerous phase. Security Council analysts detail in this report that this CIA-led deep state war to destroy President-elect Trump is a classic Genevieve ploy, first utilized by Britain's Secret Intelligence Service M16 in 1924 to destroy the government of Prime Minister Ramsay MacDonald for their crime of having made peace with Russia, and so now being deployed against Trump involves M16 operatives falsely reporting as real and hilarious fantasy made up erotica fan fiction tale about Trump, including it is an official CIA intelligence report, and then releasing it to the public through a propaganda U.S. mainstream media. And astounding as it has been to see this M16 engineered Zion-Aviv ploy being used against President-elect Trump by the CIA, deep state, U.S. propaganda media troika, this report says America's new leader is his enemy's message in his emergency message to President Putin is also now warning it's going to get even worse, and as evidenced by new reports saying that 48 hours prior to Trump taking office, very damaging and nuclear impact, CIA falsified tape recordings will be released with Trump saying the N-word, saying the C-word, and calling his son a retard, and that hundreds of thousands of Obama Clinton radical leftist protesters will use as the excuse to turn Washington, D.C. into a war zone on the 20th of January, and who shockingly are being paid $2,500 to do so. This report concludes by noting that unlike in Russia, when Obama regime leftist U.S. diplomatic operatives were exposed for their attempts to cause riots and chaos in Moscow, the greater mass of the American people remain under the mental uh, chokehold of their fake news mainstream propaganda media, unable to ascertain anymore for themselves how and why they are being manipulated to hate and fear the nearly 144 million devoutly Christian peoples of Russia, and many of them of whom no doubt will cheer if or when the CIA-led deep state publicly executes President-elect Trump, likely like they did to President John F. Kennedy before him, all because they sought peace with a common Christian nation instead of war. And though not mentioned in this report, it does bear questioning the sanity of the combined 1.061 million peoples of the United States and Europe, a union as to how exactly the barely 144 million people of Russia are going to destroy them. After all, if they can be manipulated into believing this fantasy, what else can they be fooled about? Other reports in this series include Obama issues ominous warnings to Trump. We are not going gently into the night. Number 6, CIA dead. 6 children dead after Trump sends brutal message to CIA, your families are next. Obama begins releasing Trump phone calls after Trump allies move to take over CNN. Mysterious cyber attack that hit Washington, D.C. traced to CIA headquarters. Putin orders combat alert after SVR warns of CIA plot to assassinate President-elect Trump. Heads of U.S. media explode after Trump targets vaccines he believes causes autism. U.S. Army nurse of Florida airport shooter assassinates Reverend End Times religious scholar. Obama fears erupt as Trump prepares to declare George Soros national security threat. Slamming Trump leaves Kremlin speechless. Trump explodes in cold anger after CIA NSA gun battle in Lower Manhattan. And those are the headlines of things that you're going to click on below. And just click below to go to all this and keep praying for Trump and keep praying for God's perfect will to be done. We're living in critical times. Anything can happen. And stay safe and just keep praising the Lord. And you need to all turn to the Lord. This is a critical time. And we don't have much time left, to be truthful with you. God bless each one of you. Stay safe. Thank you so much.